So today I'm going to run through a property and how the expenses will be allocated in terms of a tax return and what loss you would get back from a real life example. So I've just jumped onto realestate.com. I found a property that I just sold in Blacktown, which is in the western suburbs. The price tag was $1,042,500. So when it comes down to working out how much that property will actually cost you per year, we have the income which the property will generate. So in this area for a house like this, you're probably looking around $850 per week, which is about $44,200 per year. So here are some high level expenses which will come through because of you owning a property. You're going to have real estate agent fees, which are about 5 to 6% of the total rent per week. You have rates, water, insurance. So, and I've also provisioned a bit of repairs in there as well, which may or may not happen. It could be more, it could be less. But as a property investor, you want to make sure that you have enough money to cover all of these expenses. So when it comes to the repayments as well, I've actually gone into a loan calculator and I've given two options. You've got the interest only option. What that means is for the first 5 years of that mortgage, it will be interest only and you won't be contributing to any of the capital component when repaying that loan. So naturally, the repayments will be lower. So you can see here, the repayments are 5,995. It is a bit of a higher interest rate as well, 6.9%, assuming a 20% LVR. Whereas if it was a P and I, principal and interest loan, the bank sees this as a lesser risk because you're paying off a bit of the mortgage and they're giving you a better rate, a 6.34 rate, but it's resulting in a $6,480 repayment instead of the 5,995. So the difference would be $500 a month. This would be the amount of capital you'd be paying off each year. So at the end of it, it doesn't sound like much, but it's an extra $500. There is a big difference in terms of the total loan repayments you can see here, obviously because you've got a high interest rate and you're not actually paying off the debt. So if we just look at this example here, I've taken the interest only example, which is 5,595 in repayments. You're left with a net loss of $32,371. So I haven't included any depreciation, and just this is because the property looks to be older. Yes, it could be renovated. There could be depreciation charges in there, but just because the property looks more than 40 years old, I've assumed $0 of depreciation. So you can see this after all of the income that's come in, less the expenses, of course, provisioning for the repairs as well. You're left with a net loss of about $32,500. If you are on the 39% tax rate, which is the $120,000 to $200,000 income tax bracket, you're going to get 39% of that back in terms of a tax refund. You're left with $12,000, $12,500 basically of a tax refund from the 32. But at the end of the day, you're still losing about $20,000 per year. So yes, this property may go up in value, and hopefully it goes up in value more than the loss. And probably you wanted a bit more than just the loss in terms of the capital growth. You want to also put a bit of fat in there in case there's more repairs, more expenses. You also want to put a bit of fat in there in case, for the time that you need to manage the property and all the dramas that go on with it. So you'd probably want to return, $30,000 or $40,000 per year to make this make sense. So as well, with part of this calculation, we're assuming a 20% deposit. On top of that, you've got stamp duty, you've got lawyers' fees. So if you wanted to buy this property for $1,042,000, you'd need to have $252,000 cash just sitting there, and this would be the absolute minimum. Of course, it's recommended to have more cash because you never know what goes wrong with properties. You could have tenants that move in, move out, they keep the property vacant for longer. Of course, if the property is vacant for longer, you will have to front the income for that property, basically to keep the mortgage going. So it's always a good idea to have a good buffer to cover at least 6 months worth of repayments and a bit of extra repairs. So at the end of the day, you need to be able to ensure that you can support the cash flow loss, because this is, yes, it's going to be costing you $20,000 per year, and you may be making a $30,000 or $40,000 gain per year, but that gain is only realized once you sell the property. So each year you'll need to maintain this loss